Hey YouTube, Brian LCS. Thanks for stopping by the channel and this video, the Amazing Spider-Man number 5 review. So let's jump in. Let's get to the art. We have Zeb Wells writer, John Romita Jr. penciler. They have been consistent on this run of Spider-Man. So we start off with Digger, who is a enforcer for the Rose, and he's in the back of a car and he's enjoying an ice cream cone. And so the driver is telling him, hey, look, we're late, we need to be there. And they show up and realize that from the aftermath of last issue where Spider-Man took out the Rose and his team of bad guys, and Digger drops off his ice cream and says, oh no, we're in trouble. We're, kind of late to this party and Rose is not going to be happy with us. And Spider-Man is watching the scene from overhead, and he's still got that blob of blood on his mask and face. I guess we'll have to name that soon. Maybe we'll call that Blobby, because it's been there now for like 3 issues. And, he realizes that him taking out the Rose's men, and tearing up the building, there's little evidence, and probably the police are not going to be able to hold the Rose's men for very long. So then we cut to Tombstone, and he's in conversation with all of the other crime, bosses throughout the city. And he had mixed it up with Crime Master. I'm sorry, I was drawing a blank. Beat him up pretty good in one of the previous issues. And so the other crime bosses are saying, hey, what's going on here? Why did you do that? And, rumor on the street is that you're working with Spider-Man, and that's not a good thing. And I said, well, Tombstone challenges that and says, hey, I wouldn't be working with him. I'd put a bullet in my own head before, I'd partner up with the wall crawler. And so that appeases all of the other crime bosses. And then they kind of say, let's now get back to business. And then we cut back to Peter Parker's apartment, and we see this bill collector that has been kind of throughout the issues. He's, after Peter for some previous medical bills. And it's, Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, who shows up, and she's looking for him. And the bill collector's basically saying, look, he hasn't come in and out of here in days. And she sees him up, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, up on the roof. So she springs into action and goes to see him. And she's basically wants to check in with him and see how he's doing. And you can see his face is pretty beaten now that his mask is off. And, she's trying to give him a little bit of a pep talk here and try to get him, try to help him and let him know that she's there if he needs help. And it basically described that Black Cat mentions that his heart, Peter Parker's heart, was broken. Assuming that's over, the breakup with Mary Jane. And that, and she just says, hey, look, you need to, start acting smart, like Peter Parker would. Don't, give in to your heartbreak. You've got to kind of snap out of it and start using your head. And she says, hey, if you need anything, let me know. If once you're feeling better, you can, maybe I'll let you chase me around. And so off she goes. And then we see cut to the next day. Now, Spider-Man is a little bit more cleaned up, but he's out early, 6 a.m., grabs a cup of coffee on the run here, and has his sights set on Tombstone. But he's basically just kind of staking him out to see what's going on. And he sees a lot of trucks, being loaded and then out in the city, and they're kind of winding back and forth through traffic only to go a few blocks away from where they originally were. And the thought there was that so they couldn't be followed. So then we're back at the Rose's hideout, the scene of last issue where Spider-Man was being held, and then he beat up all of the Rose's men. And we see Digger and one of the other, the driver, assuming that's the driver, kind of stashed out there. And then in comes Spider-Man, and he's saying, hey, look, I don't want to fight. We need to talk here. He takes out the driver who pulled a gun, and then he's trying to go have a conversation with Digger to make some kind of deal with him. And he finally talks some sense into him, and they come to an agreement. Then we cut to Tombstone at his Long Island home, and he is hosting, or he just hosted brunch with his daughter, his future son-in-law, and Robbie Robinson, who's the father, will be the father-in-law of Tombstone's daughter. And so look, he just wanted to apologize for the mix-up, in recent events, and that they, were getting together to kind of smooth things over. And Robbie, makes mention, I still don't understand if, why I was kidnapped. But Tombstone kind of just shrugs that off, and he heads back into his house alone. And then we find Spider-Man here. And he's basically, there's a conversation that goes back and forth. And they're talking about maybe they need to make a partnership. And Spider-Man's joking, of course, but the fact of the past events where Tombstone tricked Spider-Man to take out the Rose's team still has him kind of a little irked. But Spider-Man's there kind of to gloat a little bit, saying, hey, look, I want to just let you know that, your shipments are being taken care of. And we see Spider-Man now has given Digger the information and kind of planted him, and Digger is going nuts, ripping the place up and destroying all of the product. Assuming this was drugs, they never really mentioned it, but assuming the product was drugs, and he's basically tearing up the warehouse. And so Spider-Man's basically just saying, hey, it kind of got you back. I think we can call ourselves even now. Tombstone basically says, well, you're crazy, man. Get out of my house. And so they kind of leave it at that. There's no fight. There's no physical payback, but there is payback where, Spider-Man was able to hit Tombstone at the heart of his operation and obviously cost him some money. And then we cut to Aunt May, and she's kind of waiting for somebody for dinner, and she's about to clean up, and there's a knock at the door, and in walks Peter, and she wants to know, what happened to his face. He obviously looks like he's been beaten up, and he makes a joke about, playing racquetball and not doing well at it. But looks like she's happy to see him, and invites him in, says we can still have dinner, and Aunt May says it's good to see you, Peter, and then he mentions it's good to be back, and that's the end of the issue. So assuming that the pep talk that Black Cat gave Peter, and then obviously the beating that he took, the combination of things kind of snapped him back into reality. But we never really, I felt like we never really got the conclusion of, it feels like the Tombstone story is not finished yet, but it does seem like they kind of wrapped it up, at least for this story arc. I do feel like, Spider-Man took a real beating and then was fooled, although he did get payback with Digger and, taking out the shipment and costing Tombstone a lot of money. I'm not sure if that was an even trade-off there. So I guess only time will tell to see where this goes with Tombstone. But interesting to hear, if you're reading this, let me know. Because I've kind of misread some of the last issues, meaning, I didn't really focus in on the story where last issue where they were kind of, developing Tombstone a little bit more and making him more of a bigger type villain. So let me know, am I really missing into the story? Am I missing something here? Or it just seems like a real quick way to kind of wrap this up. Black Cat gives Peter a little pep talk, kind of snaps him out of it. He gets a little non-physical payback to Tombstone, and then everything kind of gets wrapped up with a nice little bow. So we'll see. We'll see where the story goes, from here, but I think we are getting into a new story arc and this one is kind of concluded for now. So overall, out of my 5 web rating I would give this, I guess, a 3. Not bad, not great. We kind of wrapped this story up. Maybe not as satisfying as I would have hoped. Maybe a little bit more physical payback to Tombstone was in order. I mean, we see it here on the cover, but that never actually happened. So, like I said, I'll give it 3. But let me know. Let me know what you guys think of the overall story. Like I said, am I missing something? Is there something bigger going on here that I'm just not catching on to? But what do you think? What do you think of the storyline so far? We have 5 issues in with this new team: Zeb Wells, John Romita Jr. The art has been okay for me. It's been a little inconsistent. And the story has been okay. So that's it. I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching the review. And we will see you at the end of the month for issue number 6 and Legacy issue number 900, a big 900th issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Thanks for watching.